Hello everybody, this is Michelle Fox and welcome back to The Simple Quilter. Today I'm really excited about this video. This video was inspired by all of you. A couple of videos ago I asked all of you for your input on what to use for the binding on the quilt behind me. I hadn't wanted to purchase any more fabric, so I reached out to you for your input and you all gave me great ideas. So this video is going to show you those ideas that you all shared with me, and I will show you the binding that I did select for this quilt. Please don't forget, all of the t-shirts that I wear in my videos can be found in the So Many Quilty Things Etsy website listed below. There's also a 15% off coupon code you can use for all quilting and sewing apparel. Now, many of you voted for red, and I didn't have many scraps from this quilt after I pieced it, so I really couldn't use any of the colors in here other than the white for the binding. So I looked in my stash to find some other reds, and I just wanted to show you this red. This red blends in with this border fabric. It's the same as the border fabric. So if I had had enough, I could have used the border fabric. However, it just blends in, and I'm not sure, but I don't think it adds much interest there. Okay, so then I decided to show another red. Now this red is a little bit darker. It picks up the darkest colors throughout the quilt. But I wasn't really for sure about that one either. It doesn't look too bad. It's a good option, especially if I didn't have any others and my goal really was not to buy any more fabric. Now, several of you voted for pink, and again, I didn't have enough of any of the pinks in here, and I don't have a large selection of pinks in my stash, so I just wanted to show you what this pink looked like. I just pieced a little bit together. Now, I like this pink. I do like the pink, but again, I really didn't have enough of this to do a binding, and none of my other pinks really looked that great. So pink is definitely an option. If I had had all of this, that would have been pretty in there. Okay, the next color I wanted to show you was white. Now, I like the white, but I'm just a little leery about using white for a binding simply because it could get really dirty. So there's the white. And I do think that it looks pretty neat. The next kind of solid color I wanted to show you was black. Now, somebody selected black or mentioned black and had commented that it does make colors pop, and it does do that. And let me show you what the black looks like. So there's the black, and I really do like how the black looks. I don't know that the colors really pop extremely well because this is a darker color, but I do like that black there. And I have made a couple of quilts that do have black binding in them. In fact, the quilt that I just made for my husband for Christmas has a black binding, and it did make the colors really pop. Okay, now some of you really thought outside the box, and I really like this part of your comments because I had shown my fabric, and some of you actually even picked out some of the fabric in my cabinet. So I have tried some of those. One of you mentioned the check that was in my cabinet, so let's take a look at the check. Okay, so there's the check, and I do like the check too. I think it looks really neat, and I think it could have really looked neat as a sashing fabric, and I really had not considered the check, so that was fun to try out. Now, a couple of you had mentioned a scrappy binding, and I think that is a great idea. I have done scrappy bindings in the past, and it is a great way to use up the leftover pieces in your quilt, or that you use to make your quilt. So let's take a look at the scrappy binding. And I do like the looks of the scrappy binding. I just really didn't have enough of the scraps to do this quilt. Now, one of you had seen a polka dot in my fabric cabinet, and so let's take a look at the red fabric here. Now, I think this is a great idea, but the red polka dot that I had it does not look good with this quilt, but I do like that idea. Now, one of you mentioned using a black polka dot, and at first I was like, I don't know. But when I put it up here, it looked amazing. So let me show you the black and white polka dot. Now there's the black and white polka dot, and I think it looks amazing. This was one of my favorites. Now, I really thought this was thinking outside the box, and I had not thought of using this as a binding. And I actually almost selected this one for my binding. It actually was my husband's favorite. Now, a few of you had suggested stripes, and I also thought that was a good idea. And I really hadn't considered stripes when I was looking at the binding. So let me show you some of the stripes that I auditioned as I was looking for the perfect binding for this quilt. Now here's the first red and white binding. And I like the bindings. I like the stripes. I like the ideas of trying the stripes. But I didn't select this one, but I did like it. Okay, now this is another stripe that I used, and I really like this one. This was probably my third favorite of all the bindings that I tried. And if I had used this one, I would have put it on the bias. I love stripe binding that's been put on the bias, and I think this one would have looked great. So when you're looking and auditioning fabrics for your quilts, don't forget the option or possibility of stripes, especially stripes on the bias. Now, the last binding that I auditioned was this pink and white stripe. It has the darker pink, the lighter pink, and the white. This was my favorite. This is what I picked. Now, I would have put it on the bias. I so wanted to put it on the bias, but I did not have enough fabric. If I had decided to just use a single fold bias binding, I could have done it, but I really prefer a double fold binding. My quilts will be used a lot, and I wanted the binding to last, so I just cut it straight. Now, just for those of you that don't know, sometimes you can buy fabric stripes that are already on the bias, but this one was not. But I love the pink and white stripes. I just think it makes this quilt, it reminds me of candy and Valentine's Day and those little hearts that have messages on them. So this is the fabric that I have selected. Now usually when I audition fabrics, I'll take large pieces of fabric, tuck them in behind, and put them on my design wall like that. But as I made this video and cut these little 1-inch strips, I just really like how that worked out. And in the future, this is how I will be auditioning my bindings. I'll just cut a small 1-inch strip. Even if I have to piece little pieces, I'll put enough together so that I can put a 1-inch strip up along the edge. It's much easier to really get a good idea of what your binding is going to look like on your quilt like that. It did take a little work to piece it, but nothing major, and I just tried to use the scraps, or if I had a lot of fabric, I did cut a 1-inch piece. because I really wanted to get a good look at everything you all have recommended. If you don't know how to apply binding and need a tutorial for that, please see my tutorial posted above for that video, and that video just shows you how to put your binding on by machine. I really appreciated everyone's input and comments and feedback regarding the binding options for this quilt, and you really did help me select what I think is a really great binding for this quilt. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please give me a thumbs up if you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you haven't. Please share with a friend. And as always, leave a comment. I love to get the comments, and I try to reply to each and every one. So if you have any thoughts about all the choices I showed you, put that in the comments below. And until next time, have fun.